Hey there, it's Kelly O'Connell with Knockout Podcasting, and I hope you're doing well. I've got a great show for you today, and was thinking about this, and so I decided to turn it into an article, stick it in Canada Free Press, etc. But it has to do with the craziness that's going on with Afghanistan, but really more importantly, it has to do with the United States and President Biden. Now, you may be on the right, you may be on the left, but would you say that Biden is in chief mental health? Now, I had a friend who would constantly contact me about Trump to complain about him, tried to get him to pay attention to Biden. He would not comment. And so why wouldn't he comment? Well, part of it is not he was not as interested, but I think that people don't comment because they don't feel like they can control the narrative. So a person that you're debating with or talking with, and that person brings up a subject, and this guy, I would always bring up other stuff related to it or in spite of it, and it would always be Trump, and it would never be Biden. And I warned him that Biden was unstable, and he didn't pay any attention to it. And, there's a lot of people out there who think they can control reality through their mind, which I know is crazy, but a person who has a conversation or debate with you and is going to dominate you because they're just thinking about their subject. They're not going to go on another topic. They think they've got you cornered. He didn't know that I was not as interested in Trump as I was in the United States and our history and our mission and our way of life, because it influences the entire world. So, in any event, Biden is now in free fall, and he just gave a speech in which he defended himself. He blamed Trump, of course, for what happened to Afghanistan, but then he basically said in so many words, the world's a crazy place, Afghanistan's a crazy place, we've shed too much riches and blood over here, and we have to get out. Now, I won't bother to explain the fallacies in his arguments, although I do a little bit in this article. But I just think that we're in a situation now where the left is trying to break America and remold it into its own image, where we don't have any allies. We just have temporary allegiances. We had promised somebody we're going to be there for him in the future. If it's not to our convenience, forget about it. We will donate or leave behind $80 billion in technology, in weaponry, because it's easier than blowing it up or taking it with us. And we will leave our own people there because ultimately we have enough people in America. And the people who went there should have known better. So it's really ultimately an issue right now about leadership in the United States and how dangerous the world is. Now, here's my title for you. Impeachment: Biden's functional insanity is a direct threat to America's imminent survival. And I think that sums up my position. And Heisenberg's theory of uncertainty says right now our future is crazily unpredictable. Heisenberg's theory of uncertainty says that if you have an equation and you have more than one unknown variable, then all bets are off. You cannot predict you really can't solve the problem is really what it says. So think about that. How many people in the U.S. government are free agents, are wild cards, are jokers? When you open up the deck and you get dealt a hand and you find two jokers in your hand, you could end up with 5 aces. Or somehow, if Joe got it, he would still be a complete disaster. But now, after Biden's speech on his Afghan withdrawal, we discovered a few things: that America has a hell of an evacuation capability. And isn't it sad? That's the one thing they could brag about. We were great at leaving. While any mistakes were Trump's fault, of course, But seriously, folks, the U.S. is in an incredibly dangerous position right now, unprecedented position regarding our safety and global security. And it's because if America accidentally mishandled Afghanistan so badly, we did everything wrong, then we are unfit to defend ourselves or our allies. But if Kabul was purposefully bungled, say to harm America's world standing, which is a theme in the left, whether you believe they would do that or not, they're constantly downplaying America as being just another country full of sins, full of bad history, and who needs to be challenged and ultimately kind of slapped down. So if what Biden did was by accident, he's unfit to lead. If it's on purpose, he's unfit to lead. I mean, either way, he's unfit to lead. He must be removed immediately because he's functionally insane as our leader. In other words, to ask Joe to do something even simple confuses him. He's got a lot of pressure. He's influenced by people. He's constantly saying, I can't answer that. I was told not to. He said that many times. And so he's a broken man, but his instincts are bad. His instincts are wrong. And so he's destined to do the wrong thing. And you just heard, I'm sure, that it was stated that we were given the opportunity to control Kabul. We could have controlled our own destiny, even though we're pulling our military out. Instead, we decided not to and told them, to the Taliban, you were to turn yourselves in, basically as being terrorists to the authorities there. I mean, it just an extremely condescending and out of touch demand. And so the Taliban said, well, you don't want our offer? We're just going to take the city and then you'll pay for it. And that's what's happened. So imagine what would occur if China suddenly massed ships around Taiwan, which they've claimed that they've owned for decades, probably for hundreds of years anyway. What would Joe do? Now, using his same logic, Biden might give another It's a New World speech as he did today, where each situation was unique, must be reevaluated, and that we shouldn't overcommit to our allies. Now, that's what he said. It was awful to hear it because how can you have safety in a world where you don't cover your friends' back and they don't cover yours? Because in Biden's new doctrine, the U.S. goes it alone when convenient, does not communicate with NATO. You know, he barely communicated with NATO without leaving. So in any way that you stretch it, it was a crazy evacuation and to leave the way he did. And decides America is supposed to decide what is the most efficient means of decommitting regardless of any past agreements. And that's what he said. And number one, it doesn't make any sense because it doesn't have to be that way. But if we did want it to be that way, it's not going to benefit us in the long term because that's going to mean that we don't have any allies. How could that possibly benefit us? So now, in other words, the U.S. is a complete free agent, only worried about self-preservation, and with so many unknown variables about who's really calling the shots in the government and how our enemies might react to this opportunity. Heisenberg's theory of uncertainty says all bets are off. Now, who decided to give a thumbs up to the idea of shutting down Bagram Air Force Base and just deserting it and letting go those 5,000 prisoners? Why was it necessary, if we're going to leave the country, to unleash so many devils? Why not just say to the government, these are the very worst of the worst in Afghanistan. We want you to take care of them and put them through your justice system if you want, or just hold them there. Why did it have to be that we left in the middle of the night without telling anybody and opened the door to the prison? That's malicious. No good could come from that. Not communicating with our allies, no good could come from that. Withdrawing the military and not giving the Afghanistan army support, no good could come from that. Abandoning $80 billion worth of high-tech military equipment and cash behind No good could come from that. You see where I'm going with this. Number 6, refusing to accept control of Kabul before we left. No good could come from that. How could you possibly think that although it would be beneficial to you to run the city, that you would just go ahead and let terrorists run the city and it would all work out? No good could come from that. I've got 6 there, but there's probably 30. There's probably 50. Just awful. And evacuating Afghanis first. Why did it have to be that way? And now I've heard that they're evacuating criminals and terrorists. Why did it have to be that way? We went there and invested so much, billions, trillions of dollars to upgrade their country. So why don't we leave first? It's their country. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And now there is supposed to be hundreds of Americans trapped over there. The administration has admitted that. But it could be thousands or tens of thousands, right? They're lying their asses off. Oh, problems abound here. But overwhelmingly, Biden increased the risk of international attacks on friends and our homeland by staging such a ragged, inchoate, disheveled, and heartless abandonment of friends and citizens. Biden broke promises, ruptured treaties, donated massive weapons amounts to enemies, left secret friend lists ensuring allies would be murdered. How does that have an upside? And abandoned trusting Americans with the wolves of the Taliban. If a dystopian or kind of last days movie started with such a premise, every emotion button would be pushed for dramatic disaster. But how would it end? How does this end? I was talking to a friend of mine tonight, Shane, and we were trying to figure out how things were going to work out, and he asked me what I thought, and I said Heisenberg, which is why I thought of this tonight. Heisenberg's theory of uncertainty. If you have more than one variable, you have no idea how it plays out. Now, the problem with Joe's narrative of his Kabul logic was akin to liberal explanations for why a homeless person plundered a liquor store. If you ask a liberal person why a homeless person drinks or steals or doesn't fit into society, they'd come up with some grandiloquent explanation. But would it be accurate? Would it be helpful? Now, it would have been easier to just state Joe is losing his marbles. But this remains a conundrum. With an unfit leader at the helm of the world's biggest security anchor, how can any of our allies sleep easy? Now, world war would result from the lazy, self-centered, and cowardly Biden doctrine's application. And I've already kind of gone over the Biden doctrine. Therefore, Joe must be removed immediately, and let's see how the rest of the game plays out. One step at a time, dear friends, one step at a time. And I want to go over conflict areas in 2020 around the world, and this is from crisisgroup.org. Number 1, Afghanistan, not surprisingly. Number 2, Yemen. Number 3, Ethiopia. Seeing a pattern here. Number 4, Burkina Faso. So these are all areas influenced by Islam. Islam is inherently unstable. Number 5, Libya, another Islamic country. Number 6, U.S., Iran, Israel, and Persian Gulf, again influenced by Islam. Number 7, U.S., North Korea. Number 8, Kashmir, up in India area. Venezuela. Now, in the West, Marxism takes the place of Islam, apparently, and then the Ukraine. So that was last year. Let's listen to this year. Number 1, again, Afghanistan. Number 2, Ethiopia. Okay. Number 3, Sahel, a region of North Africa. And 4, Yemen. These same countries are coming up. Venezuela, don't mean to bore you. 6, Somalia. Number 7, Libya. Don't forget, we put Libya in the place where they're at right now. Muammar Gaddafi had a military mountain, a weapons mountain, where he was refining a nuclear weapon. And when we attacked in Iraq, he got so freaked out by that he contacted us and admitted he had this weapons mountain, and we, he had agreed to destroy it. Then he became an ally, and then during Obama's Muslim Spring, it's hard to believe that we paid for, we invested, we gave support to insurgency groups across the Middle East because it's going to supposedly bring liberty, because that's our very dysfunctional understanding. Liberty happens on its own as long as you have the right elements there. Insurgents. And that's not what happened. It was taken over. Libya was taken over by Muslim radicals, and they still have it. Now they've got this incredible amount of money they're making from the oil industry. So that's what happens when you use the kind of logic that Joe Biden's using. Number 8, Iran, USA. Very unstable. 9, Russia, Turkey. And 10, climate change. I mean, my God, why not stick that in there, right? Now, I've got another one, CFR, Council for Foreign Relations, Global Conflict Track, Political Instability in Iraq. So, look at the entire globe is bespotted by conflicts, and it's almost all Islamic oriented. And now you see how tragic and stupid it was to burn our allies. There was nothing to gain. There was only something to lose. But because the Democratic Party couldn't deal with Donald Trump, he was too strong, he was too smart. And I'm not saying that you have to support him. I'm not saying everything he did was right. But look at what they were fighting against. This guy had the top show on TV for what, a decade and a half? He's conservative. He's tired of seeing the United States not just get pushed around, but to, purposefully abandon our ideology or ideas, our purpose. And so he came in to help out. He was attacked before he got there as a neo-Hitler, as a Satan, as a Antichrist. Now, compare what he did for 4 years with what Biden did in 8 months, and you tell me who's the worst person. You tell me who cares more about people. You tell me who shrugs and says when somebody falls off a plane because they're terrified of staying around the Taliban. They fall because they were hanging on to a plane. They thought they could maybe live in the wheel well. You tell me when Joe Biden says that, oh, that was so 5 days ago. Who cares about people more? Trump fought for national sovereignty, for economic strength, for military might, for more open markets with energy. And when the COVID came up, he fought to get a vaccine, PDQ, pretty damn quick. And what you name for me one thing that Biden has done. Name for me one right choice that this old fossil, this petrified coprolite, this old dinosaur turd has done. I ask you that. And while you're thinking about that, allow me to get for you some weird news. All right, so here are your weird news stories. You may have heard this one, Wisconsin. Marshfield. Lady in a drive-thru looks ahead and sees basically a cardboard cow head stuck in the window. And she's driving along, kind of inching up, and then all of a sudden the head turns and looks at her and moos. So somebody had a cow in the back of her Buick. Not a full-size cow, mind you. More like a calf, but they stopped her and talked to her, and she said she got it. She bought it, and then she wanted to get some... didn't have any way to get it home, but wanted to stop at McDonald's on the way home. So, anyway, Buick should use that as a little bit of advertising. Now, London's worst cafe, and it was has a Michelin star, Palace Restaurant Cafe, and so it is famous for rudeness, though, and it is it is a situation where if you go in and piss somebody off, they might throw something at you. Many of the reviews have been put up online, and so there's a confrontational staff there. One customer even claimed they were chased from the premises and had a block of cheese thrown at them after they sneezed. Says the complaint, I sneezed into a tissue. Waitress comes over screaming at me with a frying pan in her hand. So I stormed out. As I got over to the road, she threw a block of cheese at me, and I had the cheek to shout at me, and to throw it back. Avoid it like the plague. The food was cold. So anyway, be careful if you ever end up there. Now I'm going to end it here with a couple of sad alligator stories. Louisiana man, 71, presumed dead after alligator attacked him in the area flooded by Ida. So anyway, this guy's wife comes out, and his area is flooded by Ida, and she finds her husband. He's missing his arm. He was walking around in the floodwaters, and of course all these gators are moving around during the storm, and the gator attacked him, took off his arm. She got freaked out, and so she gathered first aid supplies and then took off, and approximately a mile away to get help. And when she comes back, her husband was gone. So the alligator got his arm, and then he came back for the rest. All right, another alligator story. Lindsay Bull describes an 8-foot creature, Darth Gator, as a family member, and she is attacked by it. Woman attacked by alligator says, I love him and it shouldn't face any consequences. And she was with the gator, and all of a sudden it clamped its jaws on her hand in front of guests during a child's birthday party at Scales and Tails in Salt Lake City, Utah. She was eventually rescued by visitor Donnie Wiseman, who leapt into the water of the cage and clambered on top of the animal and pulled it off. The video was viewed by millions online, and of course the authorities are interested in this, and she said, don't take it out on my alligator. I love him, and as long as he's in our care, it's our choice. No consequences are going to happen to him. And she did avoid losing her limb after undergoing surgery, and she says, I love him. It's like a member of my family. That's true of everybody who works there. Everybody loves Darth. So, and she claims that she was trying to feed him and he mistook her hand for a piece of chicken. So I know that happens to Joe Biden all the time too. He bites his wife. And did you know, by the way, they had this dog that was living at the house, and it bit, this dog's name is Sergeant or whatever, the Biden dog. This is such a typical Biden story. This dog bit 7 Secret Service members and a guest in 8 straight days. I mean, this dog was going crazy. So anyway, at least he fits into the family. Well, Kelly O'Connell, and I'm going to do a show on how to contact your congressman or your senator, how to write a letter to get it out there. And by the way, it should be short like today's article is. So thanks for tuning in. Have a wonderful day, and enjoyed hanging out, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Get rid of Joe Biden. Ciao.